It is like an absolute tragedy how many brilliant ideas are just sitting in a metaphorical graveyard right now.
Oh, yeah, you see it all the time,
Yeah.
literally
And
constantly.
right. Someone builds something amazing, they pour their heart, their soul, and like their entire savings into it. They launch it out into the world with this beautifully designed website, and then just absolute crickets.
Yeah, and then you just end up stuck with that dreaded idea stage label, which is rough.
It really is.
Mhm.
And if you have ever tried to get a small business grant or build real momentum, you know that label is pretty much the kiss of death.
It's a brutal reality check for a lot of founders, to be honest. The landscape is just littered with phenomenal products that starve to death.
Mm.
Not because the code was bad, but simply because the creator didn't understand, the mechanics of connecting that product to the exact people who desperately needed it.
Yeah, building it is only like 20% of the battle.
Exactly.
And that remaining 80% is exactly what we are fixing for you today. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Our mission today is to walk through a highly specific, incredibly effective blueprint for launching a product and acquiring those crucial early users.
And doing it without sounding desperate, right?
Yes, exactly. We want to show you how to execute this so smoothly that it almost feels like magic rather than a frantic sales scramble. We are anchoring this strategy in a really fascinating real-world case study we've been reviewing. It's a product called Soulful CRM.
Yeah, Soulful CRM is the perfect vehicle for this discussion. It's an AI-powered customer relationship management tool, but it's designed specifically for spiritual practitioners.
So we're talking Reiki healers, life coaches,
Yeah.
massage therapists, right?
Right. People who rely entirely on an authentic, grounded connection with their clients. For that demographic, traditional corporate software feels, well, incredibly abrasive.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because reading through this go-to-market strategy feels like finding the cheat code for turning a messy, struggling idea into a self-sustaining business. It just completely flips traditional marketing on its head.
What's fascinating here isn't just the tactical rollout of a Reiki CRM.
Hmm.
It's the underlying psychology of the approach. I mean, it fundamentally changes how you talk to potential users.
Oh, absolutely.
It teaches you how to uncover their actual bleeding neck pain points without ever sounding like a salesperson pushing a product. It's really a complete paradigm shift from marketing to diagnosing.
Diagnosing. I love that framing because, before a doctor can diagnose you, they actually have to get you into the exam room. You have to get people's attention and make that first move.
You do.
So let's start at the very top of the funnel, which is making initial contact. The immediate goal of this blueprint is to get 10 to 25 beta users to try your product for free in exchange for brutally honest feedback.
And that number often catches people off guard. 10 to 25 sounds tiny.
Right, because when people think launch, they envision thousands of signups.
Exactly. But at this early stage, precision matters infinitely more than volume. 1,000 random clicks just give you messy, useless data.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But 20 people who are experiencing the exact excruciating problem your product solves, that will give you the exact blueprint for your entire business model.
So to get those 20 perfect people, the outreach strategy has to be incredibly sharp. And what's brilliant about this blueprint is how the outreach tone shifts dynamically depending on the culture of the platform you're using. You can't speak to an Instagram audience the same way you speak to a Reddit forum.
Oh, that is a trap so many founders fall into. The copy-paste blast. You have to match the message to the medium.
Right.
So for a platform like Instagram or TikTok, where you might be direct messaging people or posting short-form videos, the messaging needs to be intimate and identity-driven. For Soulful CRM, the outreach didn't say, hey, try our new AI CRM.
Because that sounds way too corporate.
Exactly. It focused entirely on the practitioner's specific pain points. It talked about the exhaustion of manual follow-ups, and crucially, it promised the ability to automate responses in your own authentic voice.
That specific phrasing is doing so much heavy lifting. Because for a spiritual practitioner, authenticity is literally their entire brand.
Oh, for sure.
If they use an AI tool and it spits out a robotic, corporate-sounding email, they lose their client's trust instantly.
Sure.
So the short-form outreach validates their identity while offering relief from their overwhelm. But then, you move to different platforms.
Right.
You go to Facebook groups or a platform like Reddit where people write longer, more thoughtful posts.
Yeah, and that environment requires an entirely different psychological approach. We call it the authority version.
Okay, how does that work?
Well, instead of just focusing on the individual's pain, you establish authority by drawing a stark contrast. You actively call out the big, bloated industry standards. So the messaging for Soulful CRM explicitly pointed out that giants like HubSpot or Honeybook simply aren't built for intuitive, heart-centered businesses.
Hold on a second, though. I get the contrast marketing, but I have to interrupt with some skepticism here.
Sure.
Reddit notoriously hates marketers. I mean, aggressively hates them. If you drop a CRM pitch into a specialized community like the Reiki or spirituality subreddits, they aren't going to read your contrast marketing. They're going to chase you out with virtual pitchforks. How does this strategy actually survive the Reddit gauntlet?
That is the exact friction point that ruins most campaigns. But the strategy acknowledges that danger head on. The golden rule for a hostile, anti-marketing environment like Reddit is that you never ever lead with the tool.
So what you do?
You must lead with immense standalone value. You write a comprehensive post detailing a genuine struggle you overcame in your own practice, or like a deep dive into client management psychology. You give the community something they can use even if they never click a single link.
Oh, wow.
And then only at the very end do you softly introduce the tool as an aside.
Okay, so it's the Columbo method. Oh, just one more thing. By the way, I got so frustrated tracking all my client notes manually that I started building a little tool for my own practice to fix it. Let me know if you want to poke around the beta.
Yes, exactly. It completely disarms the skepticism. You aren't a corporate suit invading their space. You are a peer sharing a workbench experiment.
That's really smart.
And the underlying rule across all these platforms is to avoid corporate jargon. Nobody cares how the AI's neural network functions. They care that they can leave their studio at 5 p.m. instead of staying until 8 p.m. doing paperwork.
Right. Okay, so let's say the outreach actually works. You posted the value, you softly introduce the tool, and a Reiki master sends you a direct message saying, I'm interested, what is this? This is the moment most people ruin it, right? They send over a massive feature list.
Yeah.
But the blueprint says you don't pitch them at all. You use what I'm calling the anti-pitch.
Yeah, because if your goal is to sell in that very first conversation, the entire strategy collapses. Think about the psychology. When someone realizes they're being sold to, their defenses go up immediately.
Oh, totally.
If you start asking selling questions, you will only get surface-level answers and polite lies. You have to approach this exactly like a founder doing deep customer discovery. You are a detective trying to diagnose a problem, not a marketer reading a script.
This sounds less like a sales funnel and more like a therapy session for their business problems.
That is a phenomenal way to look at it. And just like a therapist, you are guiding them through very specific areas of psychological leverage.
Right.
If we look at the mechanics of this anti-pitch, there are 5 key levers you have to pull to make it work. Pain intensity, current workaround cost, frequency, decision authority, and their desired transformation.
Let's actually walk through what that conversation sounds like, because it is an art form. You don't jump on the call and ask, what software do you use? You start with pain discovery. You ask a broad, open question like, what is the absolute most frustrating part of managing your client roster right now? And then you just shut up and listen.
Exactly. You're listening for emotional friction. You want to hear words like draining, exhausting, or overwhelming.
Yeah.
Once they vent, you move to the current system. How are you handling that right now? And then you hit the critical lever, the cost of the problem. You ask, roughly how many hours a week are you spending copying and pasting those notes?
See, that is where the magic happens.
Yeah.
You are forcing them to quantify their own pain.
Right.
They realize, wait, I spend 10 hours a week on admin work. I charge $100 an hour. This manual note tracking is literally costing me $1,000 a week in lost revenue. Suddenly, it's not an annoyance, it's a massive financial leap.
Which brings up the leverage area we mentioned earlier, decision authority.
Right.
It is vital to uncover if the person feeling this pain is actually the person who holds the credit card. If you are talking to an assistant who hates manual data entry, but the business owner doesn't see the financial cost of that inefficiency, your anti-pitch will fail.
Yeah.
You have to ensure the person you are talking to has the authority to make the decision to change.
Once you've established that pain and cost,
Yeah.
you move into my absolute favorite part of the conversation. You ask about failed solutions. Have you tried any other tools to fix this? What didn't you like about them? This is such a brilliant trap.
It really is.
Because asking about failed solutions literally gives you the blueprint of what your competitors did wrong.
Yeah.
It tells you exactly what landmines to avoid when you finally do explain your product.
It is absolute positioning gold. I mean, they are essentially writing your competitive advantage for you.
Wow.
From there, you pivot to the ideal outcome. What would your Tuesday look like if this admin work was fully handled? You've taken them from quantifying their deepest frustrations straight into visualizing the relief.
And this leads to the climax of the conversation, which is the close without selling tactic. The traditional move here is to say, great, buy my CRM for $20 a month. But instead, you say, this is incredibly helpful. I'm actually building something to solve this exact problem we just spent 20 minutes talking about. Would you be open to trying it out?
Right. It completely changes the dynamic from a transaction to a collaboration. You are inviting them to co-create a solution with you. And notice the phrasing there. You ask if they are open to trying it. You never, ever ask, would you use this product?
Because people lie.
Exactly.
They don't want to hurt your feelings.
Yeah.
You get on a Zoom call, they see how excited you are, and they say, oh yeah, totally, I'd use that every day. And then they literally never log in.
Yeah. The framing also explains why you shouldn't explain the details of Soulful CRM too early in the conversation. If you lead with, I'm building an AI tool, you bias their entire brain state.
Right.
They will immediately frame all their pain points around technology and AI rather than giving you their raw, honest workflow problems.
Okay, so the anti-pitch worked beautifully. They felt heard. They agreed to try the beta. They are in. But how do you ensure they don't just log in once, click 3 buttons, get distracted by a text message, and just disappear forever? This is where we have to build the growth flywheel.
Yes. A real growth engine isn't just a linear funnel where you do some marketing, make a sale, and move on. It has to be a self-reinforcing physics engine.
Okay.
Product creates user value, which naturally drives marketing, generating leads, leading to sales, bringing in more users. That triggers virality, which provides you with data, which you use to build a better product, and the wheel just spins faster.
But the absolute linchpin of that entire engine, like the spark plug, is what happens the very first moment they log in. It's called the activation moment. For Soulful CRM, this means the user needs to actually create their first client profile, log their first real session, and generate their first AI summary.
Right.
If they don't do that, they aren't an active user, they are just a tourist. And the rule here is incredibly strict. That activation moment must happen in under 5 minutes.
We really need to look at why that 5-minute rule is so critical. It's about cognitive load. When someone tries a new piece of software, they are spending mental energy trying to figure out your interface.
Yeah, and their patience is incredibly thin.
Exactly. If they hit minute 6 and they still haven't experienced the aha moment, the actual relief of their pain, they will simply abandon it. The friction outweighs the promise. The growth engine leaks before it even starts.
Which is exactly why you cannot automate this process in the beginning. It's so tempting for founders to just set up an automated email drip sequence and walk away. But the strategy insists on founder-led sales. You have to literally be on the call, manually onboarding them, watching their mouse move across the screen.
Because doing things that don't scale is the only way to learn. If you automate too early, you have no idea why someone dropped off at minute 3.
Right.
Were they confused by a button? Did the page load slowly? When you are on the call watching them, you can see the exact moment they get frustrated.
It's like trying to teach someone to drive by tossing an instruction manual into the back seat and walking away. You have to be in the passenger seat watching them fumble with the gears. And here's where it gets really interesting. There is a pro move mentioned for these early onboarding calls that is just brilliant.
Oh, the discount strategy.
Yes. After you walk them through the tool, you tell them, look, because you're helping me build this early on, you'll get lifetime discounted pricing when we officially launch.
It's a massive psychological trigger. It instantly creates deep loyalty and urgency. They no longer feel like a customer. They feel like an insider, almost like an investor.
Yeah, because they have a vested financial interest in locking in that low rate.
Exactly. They are far more likely to push through any early bugs or clunky features.
When people hear the phrase growth flywheel, they almost instantly think of raising venture capital to spin it faster. Like, let's pour money on the fire.
Yeah, but if we connect this to the bigger picture, that instinct is usually fatal. Capital raising is fuel, it is not the foundation.
Oh, interesting.
Raising money before your flywheel is airtight is a massive trap.
Right.
Investors do not fund ideas, they fund working engines.
Right.
Capital is great for scaling Facebook ads or hiring more developers once the machine works. But if your 5-minute activation moment is broken, throwing $1 million at it just means you are buying 1,000 users who will all churn in 6 minutes. Capital cannot fix a broken product, and it cannot invent demand.
You have to prove the physics of the engine work first. Which brings us to the actual execution phase. We have the
Okay.
scripts. We understand the conversational flow. We know we need a 5-minute activation moment. How do we sequence all of this into reality without spending 2 years in development?
You do a ruthless 14-day execution sprint.
Just 14 days.
Yes, the time frame is deliberately aggressive. Days 1 and 2 are purely about setup. You build a simple waitlist page, maybe you prepare a basic demo video or some mock-ups of the interface. You are not spending a month coding a perfect backend, you are just preparing the visual promise of the product.
Okay, then days 3 through 7 are pure deployment. You are posting daily on TikTok and Instagram. You are sending 10 to 20 manual direct messages every single day using this targeted scripts, and you are dropping high-value threads into Reddit communities.
And finally, days 8 through 14 are dedicated to following up, getting people on those onboarding calls, watching them use the tool, and collecting their feedback.
What are the targets for this?
The targets for this sprint are non-negotiable. You are aiming for 25 beta users, 50 to 100 email signups on your waitlist, and 3 rock-solid testimonials.
So what does this all mean? Why the intense rush? I know so many founders who would look at a 14-day timeline and just have a panic attack. Why not take 3 months to perfect the AI's tone of voice, polish the user interface, and make sure everything is beautiful before inviting strangers in to judge it?
Because that desire for perfection is really just a desire to hide.
Mhm.
Building in a vacuum feels safe, you know? You don't have to face rejection. But perfection is the enemy of the data loop. That data loop relies entirely on real-world friction.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You need 5 actual humans saying, I don't understand what this button does, to realize your interface is confusing. You need to hear the exact words they use to describe their relief so you know what your homepage headline should be. If you spend 3 months building without that feedback, you are just guessing.
You're spending all your resources building an incredibly elegant solution for a problem that might not even exist, or at least not in the way you assumed it did. It's a harsh reality check.
It is, and there's one more critical component you have to engineer during this initial build, something you absolutely cannot bolt on later: virality.
Oh, right.
You have to design the product so that the natural act of using it exposes it to new potential users.
The soulful CRM example here is the ultimate Trojan horse.
Yeah.
Imagine a Reiki healer logs a session into the CRM. The AI automatically generates a beautifully written, thoughtful summary of that session. The healer then emails that summary to their client.
Right.
The client is thrilled, but at the very bottom of that email, it subtly says, "Powered by Soulful CRM."
That is organic growth baked right into the DNA of the product. The client sees that summary. Maybe that client is a life coach themselves or a yoga instructor.
Yeah.
Their curiosity is sparked. They click the link, and suddenly you have a brand new user entering the top of your funnel, and you didn't spend a single dime on advertising.
That is the flywheel spinning on its own. And the payoff for surviving this 14-day sprint is massive. It's not just about having a handful of users. It's about how it transforms your positioning. When you go to apply for small business grants, whether that's local city funding, the Verizon grant, or a NAS grant, which is the National Association for the Self-Employed, you aren't just a person with a pitch deck anymore.
No, the psychology of the grant reviewer or the investor completely changes. You get to check the box that says, currently in beta with early user adoption, active retention, and documented positive feedback.
You are no longer in the graveyard of ideas. You are a moving train. That traction alone dramatically increases your odds of securing the funding you need to actually scale.
Absolutely.
So, to bring this all together for you listening, successful user acquisition is almost never about having the biggest marketing budget.
Right.
It isn't about yelling the loudest on social media or using the flashiest graphics. It is about diagnosing pain like a clinical professional.
Right.
It's about asking the right questions, forcing the user to expose the true financial and emotional cost of their current workarounds, and building a product that naturally markets itself just by functioning perfectly.
And the true beauty of this entire anti-pitch methodology is its universality. I mean, it really doesn't matter if you're trying to launch an AI tech startup, if you are scaling a one-on-one coaching business, or if you're running a local service company.
Yeah, the rules still apply.
The core principles of customer discovery, finding the fiction, quantifying the pain, and matching the message to the medium, they apply everywhere. You can literally start using these exact diagnostic questions in your very next client conversation.
Which means, practically speaking, you can officially stop being an idea stage founder today. You have the psychology of the outreach scripts, you understand the timeline of the 14-day sprint, and you know how to avoid the leaky engine of the 5-minute activation trap. No more brilliant ideas dying quietly in the dark because you're too afraid to talk to a user.
This raises an important question, though, and I want to leave you with this final thought to chew on.
Okay.
Think about that viral loop we discussed. The client receiving a beautifully written, highly helpful session summary from their healer, which was actually generated by the software. It completely blurs the line between the human service being provided and the software running in the
Oh,
background.
wow. Yeah.
The tool becomes part of the practitioner's magic. So ask yourself, in your own business, how can you make the natural output of your work so incredibly valuable that simply sharing it with a client becomes your absolute greatest user acquisition tool?